book of Ezekiel, chapter 11. Brother Wes will be preaching the second service, so prayer concerning that. To read Ezekiel 11, verses 14 through 16. Again, the word of the Lord came unto me. What a marvelous statement. Again, the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, thy brethren, even thy brethren, the men of thy kindred, and all the house of Israel, holy are they unto whom the inhabitants of Jerusalem have said, Get you far from the Lord, unto us is this land given in possession. Therefore say, Thus saith the Lord God, Although I have cast them far off among the heathen, and though I have scattered them among the countries, yet will I be to them as a little sanctuary in the countries where they shall come. Again, Ezekiel was one of those who were carried away from their homeland, carried away from familiar surroundings, and into Babylonian captivity. It was his ministry to inspire and strengthen the other captives. He was to do this by preaching God's message unto them in Babylon. And the book of Ezekiel contains those messages that God gave to Ezekiel. As you read through the book of Ezekiel, you see the overall theme of his messages was the greatness and the sovereignty of God. Keep in mind, he's there to inspire and strengthen God's people. And he preaches, his focus is upon the greatness and the sovereignty of God. The theme was, God is still God. That's the theme of Ezekiel's preaching. And he would remind them that because of their sins, they needed the direct intervention of God. Here in chapter 11, Ezekiel is brought in vision back home to Jerusalem, to the gate of the temple. And what Ezekiel sees causes him great distress of soul, filling him with fear that God was going to destroy his people. We get that from verse 13 of Ezekiel 11. The second part of that verse, Then fell I down upon my face and cried with a loud voice and said, Ah, Lord God, wilt thou make a full end of the remnant of Israel? That was his fear, that God was going to destroy the remnant. The remnant was in Babylon, a small part of the whole. So that was his fear. And here in verse 14, it was in this time of distress and fear that God gives him another message. And again, the word of the Lord came unto me. And it was, verse 15, a message to a certain people, those who, while they were being carried away, it was bad enough to be carried away captive, but while they were, according to verse 15, that while they were being carried away captive, they were looked upon by their brethren as they were looked upon with scorn and mockery by their brethren in Jerusalem. So it was a message. Ezekiel's message is a message to a suffering, despised, and afflicted people. And we see from verse 16 that it was a message directly from God. Thus saith the Lord God. A message from God to an afflicted and suffering people. And we will concern ourselves with this portion of the message, verse 16. Again, Ezekiel 11:16 is my favorite verse. I love this verse, Ezekiel 11:16. I might be the only person in the world. You ask people their favorite verses, Ezekiel 11:16. I guarantee you, people say, well, what does that say? Well, it basically says, although yet will I be. Although yet will I be. This is the message from God that was given to Ezekiel. It is a message about God's person. It is a message about the sufficiency of God, the grace of God, the mercy of God, the love of God, the faithfulness of God. It is a message of great comfort and hope, a message of assurance for the people of God. It is a message of promise from God to His people. As you read verse 16, it is as if God is saying to these Jews held captive in Babylon, there is always me, and for this you have me. There's always me, and for this you have me. So again, we'll take our thought from verse 16. In particular, although yet will I be to them. And we want to speak of God's provision of Himself. And we need to hear those words, although yet will I be to me, to you, to them. We need to be firmly persuaded of that fact. Words that need to penetrate our hearts and mind, having a transforming impact upon our lives. So let's consider first of all the places and times that God's people may find themselves in from time to time. Notice that in verse 16, twice we read the word although. Twice. Each time it is followed by something that God has done. The first time it says, I have. I have. And then we see the circumstance. Cast them far off among the heathen. He's speaking of their captivity. And then the second, after all, though, is scattered them among the countries. Now again, both of those statements have reference to the Babylonian captivity that they were experiencing at that time as a result of their sin, as a result of their rebellion against God. Again, far off among the heathen and scattered among the countries. And though these two statements speak of Babylonian captivity, they are also indicative of the places and times that God's people may find themselves in. And it is this that sets the context of verse 16. So we see, first of all, we may find ourselves in a place of chastisement. Back in the book of Deuteronomy, God had warned Israel that if they as a nation sinned against God, that they would be scattered among the nations. That's way back in the book of Deuteronomy. And we see its fulfillment here. And they would be cast far off amongst the heathen. Prior to the captivity, God sent prophet after prophet and reminded Judah that they were just like the northern kingdom. They were following the same path of the northern kingdom, which had already fallen. That they had shamelessly sinned, rebelled against God, just like Judah, or just like the northern kingdom, refusing the message of God's prophets, continually thinking lightly of God, dismissing God from their thoughts and their lives, putting human ideas and pagan philosophies in the place of God, busying themselves with other pursuits, forsaking the ways of God, moving further and further from God, and becoming desensitized to God and the things of God. That's what the northern kingdom did. That's what Judah had been doing for many, many, many years. And these prophets were sent to remind them judgment is coming. And now they find themselves under the chastening hand of God, scattered among the heathen in other countries. Again, I have cast them far off among the heathen. I have scattered them among the countries. And there are those today who, because of their own sin, because of their own rebellion, find themselves under the chastening of God. So we can be there. Secondly, we see it was a time of great difficulty. These two statements, far off among the heathen, scattered among the countries, speak of places and times of difficulty, crisis, strain, struggle, hassle, stress, complications. Oh, the complications that sin brings into lives. Inconveniences, trouble, agitation, and we, the saved, may find ourselves in such places. It was a place of great opposition. Far off among the heathen, scattered among the countries. Speak of places and times of very powerful and hateful adversaries. Times and places of hostility and antagonism. And we, the saved, may find ourselves in those places. It was also a place and time of defeat. Again, those two statements. Far off among the heathen, scattered among the countries, speak of places and times of threatening and danger and persecution from the enemy, and even defeat by the enemy. Living under the influence of an enemy power. That's what they were doing in Babylon. Their lives were greatly affected by the enemy. And we, the saved, may find ourselves in such places and times. It also was a place of great loneliness. Those who were carried away into Babylon as captives, again, are described as far off and scattered, indicative of the fact that they were taken from their homes. They were taken from their families. They were taken from their friends. They were taken from their employments. They were taken from their familiar surroundings and brought some 800 miles away from home. And no doubt these captives from time to time would experience loneliness and friendlessness. And you might find yourself in such a place, in such a time. No doubt it was a place, a time of great disappointment and sorrow. Far off among the heathen, scattered among the countries. It's not what they planned on. That's not what they would have chosen for their life. This is indicative of places and times of disappointment, of displeasure, of dissatisfaction, and even discouragement. In reference to Babylonian captivity, Psalm 137, verses 1 and 2 says, "By the rivers of Babylon There we sat down, yea, we wept, when we remembered Zion. When our minds went back home to Zion, to Jerusalem, we wept. It goes on to say, we hung our harps upon the willows in the midst thereof. That is all the joy, all the praise was gone. It's a picture of misery. It's a picture of gloom. It's a picture of depression and hopelessness. And we, the saved, may find ourselves in those places and times. It was also a place where they were exposed to that which is contrary to God. We learned from the book of Daniel that there was an all-out effort to get these captives to conform to the ways of Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar had a program. He had an agenda to develop an appetite in the Hebrew captives for Babylon culture. That was his agenda. I believe Satan has the same agenda today. In an attempt to reprogram their thinking, Nebuchadnezzar sought to fill their minds with Babylonian philosophy and religion, captivating them with the thinking and the ways and the idols and the ambitions and the opinions of a culture that despised God. We see the same thing today. These captives lived under the constant exposure of wickedness. And we, the saved, find ourselves in such a place today. Babylon was a nation. It had boundaries. It had government. It had laws. It had citizens. It had cities. It had towns. It had districts. But it's also representative of a system. It's a system. It's a system of humanism and intellectualism, pragmatism, secularism, atheism, materialism, and what other ism you may think of. Evil, wickedness, vileness, abomination, idolatry, blasphemy, immorality, perversion, obscenity, lewdness, and heresy was everywhere. It is a system representing the spirit of Antichrist. And we, like these Hebrew captives, are in such a system today. It just didn't start. It's been a long, long, long time. Surrounded by heathen worship, heathen idols, heathen talk, heathen ways, heathen philosophies, heathen aspirations and pursuits. And we, like the Hebrew captives, are surrounded by and bombarded with hatred and enmity toward God, living in the very midst and the very embodiment of evil. We, like these captives, live in a society that revels in and glamorizes and celebrates what God calls wicked. And that's how they live. That's the culture they were in. We, like these Hebrew captives, live amongst people spellbound by modern-day sorcery, captivated and drawn to the vileness of the times, looking for answers in that which is futile and will never, ever work. We, like the Hebrew captives, are under an all-out assault to bring us into conformity to Babylon, and to fit in and to accept and to embrace the ways of an Antichrist world. You see, Nebuchadnezzar's philosophy was, we will turn these Jews into Babylonians and then we'll send them back to their country. Satan has the same program, the very same program today. As you and I pass through this world, there are going to be places and times represented in our text. But God has a message for those times. And that's what we see here in verse 16. There is a message from God in such times and places. It is a message that God remains the same. As you read verse 16, God is presented to us as Lord, capital L, small case, the rest, God, all capitals. It is Adonai Jehovah, with the emphasis being upon the first name, Adonai, translated Lord, meaning master. It is a name that denotes relationship. Now, added to that is Jehovah, the eternal, self-existing, unchanging one. So it is eternal, self-existing, unchanging God in relationship to us as master. That's how it's presented. That's how God is presented here. In verse 16, twice he says, I have, indicating that he is the authority and he is in control. Twice he uses the word although, meaning in spite of the fact or even though. And he also uses the word yet, conveying the idea of nevertheless, notwithstanding, still, or at the same time. So it is although, yet, that is nevertheless, notwithstanding, still, will I be. Although, yet, will I be. It's not just simply, although will I be. Although yet will I be. Whatever the place, whatever the time, whatever the situation, whatever the circumstance that follows, although, there is a yet, a nevertheless, a notwithstanding concerning God. So here God say, although, and then insert whatever you want to insert. Insert whatever you can imagine after that word. Although. Desperate situations, desperate conditions, darkness, sin, failure, weakness, weariness, defeat, upheaval, hurt, sorrow, heartache, pressures, afflictions, temptations, battles, storms, fears, uncertainties, needs, impossibilities, and burdens. we can put after the word although and then continue reading. Yet will I be. Yet will I be. So you put whatever you want after although. But don't stop there. Continue reading. Yet will I be. Although God will be. And He will never be less than who and what He is. Regardless of the situation. So whatever is involved in our place and time, and whatever changes may occur in our place and time, hear Him say to you, although yet will I be, although yet will I be the Most High, the Almighty One, the All-Knowing One, the Sovereign One, the Sustainer of all, the Faithful One, the All-Sufficient One, the One who has the grace and strength that you need, the Merciful One, the Unchanging One. Yet will I be. That is, what I have been, I am. And what I am, I will continue to be, regardless of whatever follows. Although, yet will I be. Let us fill our hearts with praise. Let us fill our hearts with confidence, humility, reverence, thanksgiving, and on and on we could go. Although yet will I be. Let us fill our hearts with purpose and resolve. I can press through. I can go on. Because I know He is. He is. Secondly, it is a message of God's relevance. In other words, it's not an impersonal message. Notice what it says. Although, skip some words, yet will I be to them. To them. Referring to those, who's the them? Well, it's the ones who are far off among the heathen. Those who have been scattered among the countries. Yet I will be to them. That preposition to links God to them. Links God to us. Yet will I be to them. Insert your name. Yet will I be to them. Put whatever you want on the other side of although. But yet will I be to them. And again, you can insert your name. Yet will I be to them. What is that? That's God's provision of Himself for us. God provides Himself. It's not merely that God provides our needs. Yes, He does. God provides Himself, which, by the way, is our greatest need. God. He provides Himself. So it's a message of relevance. Whatever the time or place, although, yet will I be to you. So let's put some things after although. Although you and I fall, yet will I be to you the one who can lift you up. Although you and I sin, yet will I be to you the one who forgives sin. Although you may become weak and can't go on, yet will I be the one who strengthens and the one who is able. Although you may be paralyzed with fear, yet will I be to you the one who can give you courage. Although you may face insurmountable giants, yet will I be to you the one who is greater than any giant you will ever face, the one who can give victory. Although you may be confused, yet will I be the one who can guide you through the maze of life. Although you may face the onslaught from the enemy, yet will I be to you the one who can shield you. Although you may be in the midst of a fierce storm, as Brother Wesley taught this morning, yet will I be to you the one who can calm the storm. He may not calm the storm, but he'll calm your heart in the storm. That's even greater than him calming the storm. Although, yet will I be to them. In other words, I will always be who I am, and will be who I am for you. Yet will I be to them. Again, we have the provision of God Himself. Now notice, it says, although, yet will I be to them as, so a comparison, as a little sanctuary. I will be like to them a little sanctuary. In other words, I will be something specific to them. Something specific to their need. A sanctuary. A sanctuary is something that's actual. It's not imaginary. It's real. It's not an abstract. God is saying, I will be to them real. I'll be a reality to them. A sanctuary is a special place. It is a set-apart place. It is a distinct place from the ordinary, or whatever follows, although. So again, we hear God say, although, yet will I be to them a little sanctuary. I will be to them a special place, set apart from whatever follows, although. The sanctuary is an available place. God is saying, I will be available to them. A sanctuary is a place you can enter. God is a place where they can enter. A sanctuary is a place where you can hide. The whole picture conveys the idea of asylum and protection. It is a safe and sure refuge from all that threatens and all that afflicts and all that harms. Life is full of harms. Yet will I be to them a little sanctuary. God Himself will be as the sanctuary. We hear David say in Psalm 32:7, Thou art my hiding place. That's what God is saying here. Yet will I be to you a hiding place. It's a place of refuge. We read in Deuteronomy 33:27, the eternal God is thy refuge. Yet will I be to you a refuge. A sanctuary is a place of provision. A sanctuary is a place of stillness, a place of rest, a place of mercy, a place of cleansing. It's a place of revelation. It's a place of communion. And God says, yet will I be to them as a little sanctuary. A sanctuary is a place where we can reside. We can live there. we can actually live there. Psalm 91:1, he that dwelleth in the secret place of the Most High shall abide under the shadow of the Almighty. Now back to our text. Yet will I be to them as a little sanctuary. Notice the next word. In the countries where they shall come. I will provide myself where they are. Where they are. That's where we need them. I need them where I am. And that's what God is saying here. I will be to them as a little sanctuary in their captivity. Yet will I be to them. In. Very important word. In your dangerous, threatening times, yet will I be in the midst of it all. The place where you can find refuge and rest. When you're in these places and times, don't look for refuge anywhere else. Yet will I be to them as a little sanctuary in. Right where we are. Our chief concern when we're in these places and times is getting out of there. That shouldn't be our chief concern. Our chief concern is to find God in that place. As our refuge, as our rest, as a place where you can find grace and mercy and cleansing. Although yet will I be. That is, in all this, I still am who I am, who I've always been, and always will be, and I will always be what you need, and for such, you have me. That's what God is reminding them of here. He's saying, you have me. Yes, you're in captivity. Yes, you're in a place where you would have never chosen. It's not what you planned. But in it all, you have me. What else could you ask for? You have me. And isn't that true everywhere I go? You have me. You have me. It's God's provision of Himself. And He'll hold your hand. He'll carry you. He'll shepherd you. He has green pastures, still waters. He can still restore your soul and lead you in right paths and walk with you through the valley of the shadow of death and lead you in right paths and comfort you and spread a table before you and anoint you until your cup runs over. No matter what follows. Although it is God providing Himself as light greater than the darkness, as healing greater than the wound, as strength greater than the weakness, and on we can go. But it is God providing Himself. So hear God say, wherever you are today, hear God say, although, yet will I be to them. Yet will I be to me. Yet will I be to you. May we go from here with those words engraved upon our hearts and minds. Although, yet will I be. Again, this is my favorite verse. My favorite two words in the Bible are but God. And it really coincides with what we read here. But God. Never, ever, ever lose sight of God. That's where our assurance is. That's where our courage is. That's where we find resolve. And that's how we're able to be steadfast. Keeping our eyes upon God. So in light of verse 16, focus upon Him. Don't focus upon Babylon. Don't focus upon your situation. That will not help you. Focus upon Him. Look to Him. Pursue Him. Draw near to Him. Lean upon Him. And draw from Him. And that we're to do wherever our in is. Whatever condition, whatever place we're in, those things apply. And that needs to be our focus. Brother Ben, if you'll come and lead us in verse of song.